Good morning and welcome to this fifth session of Spirituality Basics. It's a forum where I take up some common topics on spirituality and discuss them at a very basic and fundamental level, and primarily with a view to increasing awareness and creating interest in spirituality. And of course, you gain some basic knowledge about the topic. Today's topic concerns everyone. It affects the quality of our life, the quality of our performance in whatever we are doing. Whether you're a student, an entrepreneur, a scientist, scholar, housewife, anyone and everyone, it's concentration. We will first see what our scriptures, mainly Patanjali Yoga Sutras, what they say about concentration or dharana as they call it. Then we will look at some of the developments and findings made in the field of positive psychology. That's the branch of science. And finally, how to improve concentration. I will again begin with a quote of Swami Vivekananda, who said that the difference between an ordinary person and a great person lies in the degree of concentration. What a profound statement. Dharana or concentration is one of the major limb or stage in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra that gives us the process of attaining self-realization through the meditation route. So we'll briefly look at what the 8 limbs are. The 8 limbs or stages, or they're also called Ashtanga, they are firstly Yama. Yama talks about the moral discipline or the outwardly behavior of a person towards others. And it includes first Ahimsa, which is non-violence, as you all know. Satya, is truthfulness. Asteya, non-stealing, should not steal. Brahmacharya, is celibacy or the use of energy. Aparigraha. Aparigraha is non-greed or hoarding. Use whatever is needed by you, not more than that. Next is Niyama. Niyamas are basically observances on how you conduct yourself on a more personal level. So the first niyama which is given is Saucha. Sauch, it's cleanliness and purity. And not only of the body, it's also of the mind. Santosha, contentment. They say contentment is natural wealth. You must be contented with what you have. Tapas. Tapas means heat. Tapas is basically burning away your impurities. Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is self-study or study of your own self, looking inwards into the real meaning of life, etc. And Ishwar Pranidhana. It is basically surrender to God or even any higher power that you believe in, or even to the higher self. Third is Asana. Since the ultimate aim is to attain moksha or samadhi through meditation, the Yoga Sutras say that the posture of sitting should be absolutely perfect and it should be steady. In fact, there is only one sutra, Sthiram Sukham Asana, in relation to asana in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. It does not give any details of any physical asana or posture, as many of you might think. Fourth is Pranayama. Breath control has always occupied a very high place in the yoga system. So, breath control is essential aspect of meditation. Pratyahara. Pratyahara means withdrawal or sensory transcendence. We make conscious effort to withdraw our awareness away from the external world. It's having a sense of detachment from our senses so that the mind is able to introspect. Next comes dharana. In fact, the practice of pratyahara creates the setting for dharana or concentration. So if you see, it's in a progression. Stage by stage from Yama, Niyama up to Pratyahara. First you purify your own self, then you clean up your behavior towards others, have a perfect body so that you are able to sit longer for meditation, have breath control through pranayama, and are able to withdraw yourself from the outer world through Pratyahara. Concentration or dharana should be absolutely unflickering, otherwise meditation will fail. Next comes dhyana or meditation, after which it's the final stage of samadhi. So the dharana or concentration that is talked about in the scriptures is a serious matter, and there is no scope for any lapse in attention. Otherwise, you'll have to go back to the previous steps. But the concentration that we majorly discuss today will be more on a practical level. Rather than focusing on concentration as needed in meditation. Though it will turn out that, meditation is the ultimate answer. Now, why our mind wavers during meditation. It is the 6th stage out of the 8. And before that, you need to, purify your mind, have a complete control over your senses, etc., etc. In Bhagavad Gita also, there is a reference to concentration is in respect to meditation, where in chapter 6, which is the Sankhya Yoga, Sri Krishna gives a detailed account to Arjuna as how to sit in meditation with a one-pointed mind, with the head and neck erect and still, gazing at the tip of the nose without looking around, etc., etc. In fact, it uses a beautiful simile when it compares the yogi's concentrated mind, to an unflickering lamp. Such should be the level of concentration. Now let's look at the concept of concentration from a more practical viewpoint. As we know in layman's term, concentration is how much attention you are paying to whatever you are doing, whether it's a thought, study, play, performance, or any other action that you might be doing. So let's go back a little and understand a bit more about our mind, because concentration, after all, is a function of the mind. We will take the help of the branch of science known as positive psychology. Positive psychology is basically research into the human strengths, happiness, character, concentration. It's not about, illness and weaknesses. A pioneer in this field is this person called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. You can see his photograph. It's a complicated name. He's a Hungarian, but later settled in America, professor of psychology, and he's famous for his book called Flow. It's a book on how to achieve happiness. That's the cover of the book. There he says that the quality of our life depends upon the quality of our experiences. Day-to-day, minute-to-minute experiences. And the quality of our experience depends on concentration, on focus, on attention. Now let's see some aspects or characteristics of concentration. Firstly, the power of our attention is limited. We say that the mind has unlimited power, but no. As per Mihai, at any given time, we can consciously process only 110 bits of information per second. Is it a lot? Maybe no. Just now, like I'm speaking to you and you are listening and understanding me, that takes away about 60 bits, more than half. That's the reason, when two people are talking to you at the same time, you don't understand properly any of them because we do not have enough cognitive bandwidth to understand them both at the same time. It's beyond our cognitive limit. So concentration is how much of that 110 bits we are able to use to focus on the object of our attention. That's concentration. If you are studying a book, how much of that 110 bits you are giving to the study? And remember, the full 110 bits are not available to us. Some of it is, taken by awareness of the environment, the breathing that we do, etc. So let's say we have a total 100 bits available to us. So if a child who is studying is giving just 30 or 40% of his attention to his studies, or say 30 to 40 bits, what will the balance 60 or 70 do? They will be used by anything in the environment that pulls his attention. Whether it's some noise, television, some physical discomfort, checking up the phone, anything that comes to his mind and he will be distracted. But if the same child is giving 80 to 90% focus, then there is not enough bandwidth left for focusing on external environment. So he practically cannot think or bother about the other things. Actually, every child has tremendous power of focus. We notice that when he is watching his favorite cartoon show, how much engrossed he is, hour after hour. So the ability to focus is there, just that it has to be channelized. then concentration is enjoyable. When you're concentrating, it's not only productive, it's also very enjoyable. This Mihai calls flow. He interviewed people from different walks of life, like musicians, artists, athletes, etc. And he asked them that what is the best part of their experience, when they are the happiest, when they are achieving the most, what do they feel at that time? And this is what a classical music conductor told him about how he feels when he is conducting an orchestra. You are in an ecstatic state to such a point that you feel as though you almost don't exist. I have experienced this time and again. My hand seems devoid of myself, and I have nothing to do with what's happening. I just sit there watching it in a state of awe and wonderment, and the music just flows out of itself. All that ecstasy, joy, and sense of achievement is possible only through the highest level of concentration. In that book, he says that the quality of our lives, depends upon how much concentration you give and what you concentrate on. In fact, Swami Vivekananda had immense memory and concentration power. There is a nice story that once in Belur one of his disciples, Sharat Chandra, came and saw Swamiji reading, one of the volumes of Encyclopedia Britannica. In those days, it was the physical volume. Today you can have it on a DVD or on the click of a mouse. And the other volumes were stacked in front of him. So he asked, is it possible to finish so many volumes in one's lifetime? And you know what Swamiji's answer was? He said that, what do you mean? I've already finished 9 volumes and I'm on the 10th. You can ask me anything. And Sharat Chandra actually asked him, he picked up a few volumes and actually asked him questions at random from those volumes. And Swamiji replied all of them. And quite eerily, some of his answers were verbatim of what was written there. And such was his concentration and power of memory. He would say that we all have that power. It's possible to achieve it through concentration and purity of mind. Next is the ability to attach and detach. Now, when you are focused on one thing, there would naturally be a long waiting list of things requiring your attention if you are focusing on it. Therefore, it's very important that after you have concentrated hard on a thing and are done with that task, you should be able to withdraw from it quickly and make a switch to the next object of attention. We all have that power of concentration, but if you also have the ability to pull out your mind and put it on something else quickly, it's great. Napoleon had that power. He said that I have a cabinet of multiple drawers in my mind. When I want to talk about the army, I open that drawer and shut out all the drawers. When I want to talk about the finances, I open that drawer and shut the others. And when I shut all the drawers, I go off to sleep. He had the ability to go off to sleep anytime that he wanted. Next is you lose focus on other aspects of life. One sign of concentration is that you forget all other problems of life. Problems at home, health, career. And why do you forget? The answer is simple. You don't have more than 110 bits of cognitive bandwidth. So your mind cannot and will not dwell on those things. So when you study with full concentration, you forget that you're exhausted, you are hungry. Reason is the same. 110 bits is not sufficient to focus on the object of your environment, discomfort. Of course, when you get up, you feel exhausted and hungry, etc. Too much focus on result prevents concentration. Classic example is Sachin Tendulkar. He says that when I really want to do well, I focus on the game and I consciously avoid looking at the scoreboard, especially when I'm close to a century. So seeking the result creates a division in consciousness and concentration. Next is transformation of time. Time moves faster. Hours seems to pass in minutes when you are in flow. I'm sure, all of you must have experienced it at some point of time or the other, doing the things that you enjoy. When you are engrossed in something, we lose the sense of time. Just imagine a neurosurgeon. I mean, he does an operation standing continuously for maybe 6 to 7 hours and he doesn't feel it. But if you tell him to stand idle even for an hour, I mean, he will find it tough. I mean, all because the flow is not there. Concentration and the digital world. This is a huge problem area today. I mean, it wasn't so when we were kids, how the digital world is adversely affecting our concentration is immense. There is a documentary film called The Social Dilemma. It's available on Netflix. I mean, many of you might have seen it. It focuses on the harmful effect of social media on concentration, on the lives of people, especially young people, on how the social media like Facebook, YouTube, etc., they are being used to influence the psychology of people, and most dangerously, without their knowledge. The tagline of the film is, "The technology that connects us also controls us." So when we see internet today, I mean, we see a whole lot of information that is available to us just with a click, and all this is free. And it is said that when a product is available for free in the internet, then you are the product. The film shows how the apps are programmed to catch our attention. I mean, they can track us, I mean, they know what we are browsing, maybe not with evil intention, but just to grab our attention by studying our habits. It's a common joke that if someone wants to apply for a job at Google, he just needs to send his name. Google knows everything else. As I said, we are constantly being tracked. If you search for a Delhi to Goa ticket, the next moment, I mean, you will start getting advertisements showing rates for the ticket. So it is delivering what you want to see, what you want to hear, and what you want to wear. They have even simulated it to, to whom will you vote for. I mean, we all know about this Cambridge Analytica case. And neuroscience has got into it. Just like when we do something pleasurable, we get a burst of dopamine in the brain, which gives us a tiny little burst of pleasure. The phone trains us for that. So it becomes like, a small addiction. So how all of us have been trained to look at the phone again and again. I mean, we do it hundreds of times throughout the day. This is very damaging for our attention. I mean, it's very harmful for our concentration, which requires an unbroken attention on a subject for a chunk of time. Today, our entire habit is looking at the phone again and again, going from one social media to another, browsing the internet. I mean, it's become a habit which is very difficult to break. I mean, a quick test is that if your phone is taken away for some time, you surely will feel uneasy. This little uneasiness is because we have been trained and addicted to the phone. Studies have shown that once your attention is diverted, even for a few seconds, it takes up to 20 minutes to get full concentration. I mean, what a huge loss. Up to 20 minutes. I mean, not 20 minutes every time, but up to 20 minutes. And what a great price to pay for looking at the phone even once. Next is multitasking versus concentration. Swami Vivekananda said that do whatever you are doing with the fullest attention, not just meditation, not just studies, I mean, even gossiping with your friend, because it's the same mind and we have only one mind. I mean, take the example of a shaving blade. I mean, I'm talking of our good old blade, our Gillette blade we used to shave with. It's a separate blade. And if you start sharpening a pencil with it, I mean, we did, then can you shave with the same blade the next morning? Maybe no, because it would have become blunt. Similarly, if throughout the day, if we do things haphazardly without focusing on one subject, especially internet or social media browsing, then when the time comes to focus in the evening, say on your studies, mind will plainly refuse. It has become habituated to being scattered. So, Swami Vivekananda says, intense focus, just the opposite of multitasking. Looking at the phone while studying off and on, it's very harmful for concentration. Time magazine did a full cover story on multitasking, and they concluded that multitasking is not good for our mental health or even for our productivity for that matter. Now, these are some of the aspects of concentration. Mainly we saw how when you concentrate fully on something by giving maximum percentage of your cognitive capacity, you attain flow, which is productive, enjoyable, and always leads to positive results. Next, how to improve your concentration. Here again, first we'll consider what our scriptures have to say about it. Chanting of the Om mantra. Om allows the mind to fix on that one word and experience deeper level of awareness. In fact, it's the most powerful mantra which can even lead to self-realization as given in the Mandukya Upanishad. Third eye focus. Third eye, as we know, is between your eyebrows and it is the location of the Agya Chakra. And constantly focusing on the third eye can lead to silencing of the mind and avoid unnecessary thoughts. Even during meditation, we are sometimes told to focus on the third eye, and sometimes you can even feel the heat getting generated there. Trataka. Trataka is candle gazing. When you constantly gaze at a candle, it improves your concentration power and also visualization power. Pranayama. Pranayama is breath control. Pranayama balances our entire system. It helps in bringing equilibrium in the mind and also results in a more balanced and calm mind, which is less susceptible to wavering, leading to better concentration. Meditation. Though if you look at the sequence of Patanjali's 8 limbs that we saw a little before, meditation comes after concentration. Dharana comes before dhyana, implying unless perfect concentration is there, you can't meditate. But sitting still quietly and consciously drawing your attention inwards and trying to focus on any object of your choice, any deity or simple breath, will basically train your mind to concentrate. That's very important. You'll get into a habit of concentration. Now, if we look, what normally happens during meditation to all of us, if we just break down the sequence, it's as follows. We start our meditation, we select a object of focus, and whether it's a mantra, chakra, breath, or any other visualization, we start off. Then, after some time, distractions come and your mind wavers from one thought to another. Thirdly, you suddenly become aware of such distraction. You bring your attention, you bring your mind back to the object of focus again. Now, Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6, Sri Krishna, while explaining the process of meditation to Arjuna, he tells that whenever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it under the control of self. Daniel Coleman, who gave these previous 4 steps of problems in meditation, and he's famous for his book on emotional intelligence. He says in his book, Focus, that for all the above situations, the 4 situations of meditation, different set of neurons fire in your brain. So whatever is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita is as per neuroscience. Who knows that they might have visualized different processes in our brain. So regular meditation improves the power of noticing the distraction and bringing it back, thus improving concentration. Even Mihai Csikszentmihalyi finally concluded in that book Flow that the best methodology to get focus is through meditation, as stated by Patanjali. Exercise control over social media exposure. We just saw that how social media plays havoc with our mind, with our concentration. And this is true especially for young children, who today are exposed to an overdose of social media. We should get into a habit of consciously staying away from our telephone and social media during certain fixed times. Say at the dinner table or certain fixed hours. And in fact, many scholars in the Ivy League US colleges, they have completely gone off the social media after seeing the film, The Social Dilemma. You should also see it. It's available on Netflix. It's a beautiful movie. Then it's the habit of concentration. As Swamiji said, whatever you do it with the fullest attention, fullest concentration, so that your mind is trained to concentrate. Active reading, I mean, this is true for young children, and all of us, we did it. I mean, active reading is when you engage more of your cognitive faculties while reading, like underlining the main points, reading aloud. And I mean, we have even seen children putting their hands over their heads, something like this. And we all did studies. And this is basically to cut out all the distractions. And this indirectly improves concentration by grabbing some of the spare bandwidth. So there is not enough capacity left in the mind to wander. Curiosity, arouse curiosity. I mean, it's a very powerful tool to bring in more focus on concentration. Often we read something and then ask the questions. So set up the questions first in your mind and then start reading it. I mean, it's a huge discovery. I mean, tricks you can use to engage your cognitive capacity. Limit your multitasking. Studying with your headphones on, I mean, it's an absolute no-no. I mean, always remember, whatever you do takes this pound of flesh out of the 110 bits available to you. So try not to scatter your attention. Take short breaks. The moment you feel that there is a lapse in concentration, you are unable to bring it back, take a break. Not by browsing the internet, by just maybe sitting quietly in a corner or listen to some calming music or maybe take a walk. Play certain games. Playing certain games improves concentration like Sudoku, chess, crossword puzzle, etc. Regular exercise. I mean, it's been scientifically found that regular exercise has effect of increasing concentration and attention. I mean, even just after 4 weeks. Give nature a chance. Whether it's a walk in the park or having plants in your office at home, the greens have a positive effect on the brain development. Finally, remember, you have only one mind, and that too a monkey mind, and that too with limited capacity. And it's a slave of habits. So anything that you do which has an effect of defocusing the mind, scattering the mind, is harmful. And constant and conscious introspection of your thoughts is essential if you want to improve your concentration. Otherwise, your mind will move in a natural movement, as trained by the digital media, move from one thought to another and get lost. It's up to you to notice it, bring it back, and see to it that, it doesn't happen the next time. So that's all for all. I will just end with a quick prayer. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityur ma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much.